I don't know why they're talking about sleeping, though. We have a run to go on. Hey, roomie. It's oppressively hot down here, and the air is full of synthetic odors that grab you by the sinuses and refuse to let go. You can smell engine grease and melting plastic, ionized air, and lead solder. A quick scan of the room tells you why. The downstairs tenant has converted this space into a machine stop. Metal fabrication tools and Duraplast extruders line the walls, and a pair of heavy industrial manipulators hang from the ceiling. A man in a black trench coat stands with his back to you, staring at a monitor mounted above a sturdy workbench. He addresses you without turning. Ah, I was wondering when I'd meet the new neighbor. His voice is pleasant, cultured. There's a hint of a Russian accent there, but it's buried under layers of nuance. Please stay where you are. I'll be with you in just a moment. And unless you fancy an unplanned trip to Chrome Alley, don't touch anything. There are all manner of tools in here that could take your hand clean off. Thanks for the warning. Don't mention it. I have no interest in seeing anyone hurt in my shop, especially not my upstairs neighbor. I will examine the robotic arms mounted to the ceiling. You focus on the enormous manipulator arms that you saw earlier. They're bulky industrial things, dented from years of heavy use. Each arm has been fitted with at least a dozen different welders, soldering guns, extruders, and metal fabrication tools. Oh. You've seen machinery like this in factories before, but they look terribly out of place in the bolt holes, cramped engine room. Very good. Yes, that's coming along nicely. Very nicely indeed. He turns towards you, smiling, and for the first time you can see his face. He has broadly handsome Slavic features and a chiseled jaw. His eyes are like flecks of ice. So sorry to have kept you waiting, Miss... Alley Cat. It's no problem. Don't worry about it. You're too kind. Now tell me, what can I do for... His voice trails off as a flash of motion catches his eye. With alarming speed, a sinister-looking drone scuttles out from under the work table. Its movements are surprisingly agile and fluid. The machine rears back menacingly, spreading its forelegs in a clear sign of aggression. The man's smile tilts and his tone goes apologetic. Please don't mind the drone. He can be territorial, but so long as you remain civil, he will not bite. He extends a hand. Simultaneously, the drone relaxes into a neutral position, lowering its killing legs. Reactor. My mechanical counterpart here is named Cochet. I'll shake his hand. A pleasure. His hand is rough and abnormally warm to the touch. He shakes your hand with a solid grip. I am very pleased to meet you, my friend. In a community such as yours, it's important to be on good terms with one's neighbor. Agreed. Speaking of which, I'd like to ask you some questions if you have the time. He glances at the bracer on his forearm. A technical display winks to life, then gutters out. Very well. This morning's casting should still be cooling for a few minutes yet. That's time enough to talk. Cochet is an interesting name for a drone. Yes, I suppose that it is. Not many riggers would name their most prized possession after a villain from a fairy tale. A nod to my heritage, I suppose. What was the fairy tale about? A thoroughly unpleasant person. Cochet the Deathless, he was called, and for good reason. His soul was cleverly hidden outside of his body, and he could not be killed so long as it remained intact. Cochet was a villain and a notorious kidnapper of women, but something about him always stuck with me. I suppose that it was the notion of immortality through cleverness that resonated. There was something to be learned from that, I was sure, and so when it came time to name my beloved creation, his was the first name that came to mind. And is your drone deathless, like its namesake? In a manner of speaking, I suppose that he is. I have redundant copies of every piece of his architecture, and his core programming is stored on disk in a secret location. Should he ever suffer critical damage, I can easily bring him back. I had a plan once to automate the self-repair process. I must confess it was really quite ingenious, but alas, my research was lost. One day I will reclaim it, and Cochet will become as deathless as the stories claim. But it will not be today. You've got some interesting machinery in here, not the kind that you typically see outside of corporate settings. He smiles. The same could be said of many in Hioi, I'm sure. This is a smuggler's den, is it not? Our entire economy is based on people having things that they shouldn't. Is there a particular device that interests you out of curiosity? The robotic arms that you've got over there, they look like something taken from an automotive assembly plant. His smile flashes brilliantly in the light. Good guess, that's precisely what they are. They fell off a boat, you might say. They weren't cheap, but I acquired them and had them mounted to the walls of my shop. I simply had to have them. The return on investment has been dramatic. Yes, they are cruder by far than the Waldo devices that I used in my professional life, but they still do the job and they are mine. He gazes lovingly at the industrial arms, still smiling. They have increased my fabrication capabilities nearly tenfold, and that, to me, is worth any price. When you said this morning's casting, what did you mean? Exactly what I said, a casting that I made of a new locomotive assembly for Cochet. He gestures at the display above the work table. A diamimetic design, as you can see. This one is inspired by the walking legs of a decapod crustacean, the mangrove crab to be specific. That's fascinating. And will this new leg assembly make your drone more effective? That remains to be seen, but there is more to life than combat effectiveness, is there not? By fabricating new components for Cochet, I unlock options, different ways of being. Even the failures, and there have been many, have value in this context. Wouldn't it be simpler to design the parts here and outsource the fabrication? Simpler? Yes, but not better. Here I have ultimate control over the entire process from start to finish. And I have the skills to make good use of that control. Drone architecture was once my profession, you see. Now that I have freed myself from the shackles of corporate servitude, I see little reason to rely on outsiders for much of anything. Are you Russian? I thought I caught a hint of an accent there. He nods. You have a good ear, I'm impressed. Yes, I grew up in Nizhny Novgorod, went to school there, started my career there in the industrial sector. A fairly common story, I'm sure. But I have also traveled a great deal, and in so doing I have absorbed a number of other languages and dialects. How many languages do you speak? Counting Russian and Cantonese? 15. He shrugs apologetically. It shames me to admit that I'm only literate in 12, however. That's still impressive. Perhaps when compared with the common man, but I've known a great many polyglots who can and do put me to shame. He gives you another half shrug, and Cochet mirrors the gesture. Arabic has been a particular bugbear of mine. The unfamiliar characters and lack of vowels make it damned tricky to get a handle on, but I suppose that all men have their limits. You said that you used to work for a corp. Whose payroll were you on? He sighs. That is something of a sore subject. My departure was involuntary, you see. I did not part ways with my employer under the best of terms. I will tell you that I worked for a Grecian Aviacorps, but you'll forgive me if I don't want to go into detail. Keeping all this machinery running can't be cheap. How can you afford it? Freelance. At the risk of sounding immodest, I've commodified myself rather well. There are always corporations in need of design consultations. You'd be surprised by how lucrative such work can be. And there is always other work that I can turn to in a pinch. You said that you did other work besides consulting. Care to tell me what kind? He pauses, and for a second something flashes in his eye. Cochet lowers its body into a crouch. A rather personal question, wouldn't you say? Maybe, but then we're having a personal conversation. Indeed we are, but even in personal conversations, certain topics can be held off limits. Truth be told, I don't feel especially comfortable discussing my side work with relative strangers. Suffice it to say that my freelance activities often fall on the illicit end of the spectrum. Tell you what, I'm just going to guess. You're a Shadowrunner, aren't you? He gives you a shallow nod. I dislike the term, but yes, I run the shadows. What gave me away? Design consultants live in apartments in Victoria Harbor. You're living in a rusted-out boat in Hioi. There's gotta be a reason for that. He shrugs. You are correct, of course. The residents of shadow communities are usually either too poor to live elsewhere or engage in behaviors too illicit to risk it. I will admit to being in the latter camp. Designing robotics is my passion, but it doesn't always pay the bills. He runs a hand over Cochet's armored chassis, caressing the sculpted metal with his fingertips. My status as a foreigner has proven something of an impediment in this regard. And so, sorry as I may be to say it, the lion's share of my income flows from Cochet's aptitude for butchery. Such is life, I suppose. We do what we must to do what we love. Seems like everybody on this boat runs the shadows. Why not pool our resources and work together? He purses his lips, considering. A compelling offer. I'm doing quite well on my own, but I must admit that there are certain jobs for which I am unsuited. Magic eludes me, and I'm not a decker. My strength comes from material objects in the real world. Solid things with mass and heft. Things that I can build and operate. Sadly, a great many clients are only interested in teams that display a mastery over the intangible. This group of yours, do you have people who can cover these bases? If so, then perhaps we can help each other out. Yes, we have a shaman and a decker, both competent at their jobs. In that case, I will accept your offer on a provisional basis. We'll do a few runs together and see how we get on. If our association bears fruit, it will continue. If not, I will bid you my farewell and go back to working alone. How does that sound? Welcome aboard. Very good. Excellent. When you receive a job, you know where to find me. My skills and resources are at your disposal. And with that, I'm afraid that I must bid you good day. I still have work to do down here. This leg assembly won't clean itself. I'll be in touch. Looking forward to working with you. And I with you. Doctor's a cool dude. Well, he's cool. Maybe not cool. Like, he's not entirely maybe on the level. We'll get to that a bit later. His affinity towards machines runs a little bit deeper than the game initially lets on. Overhead, a gigantic hollow sign shines like a searchlight, screaming its message through the dim light. It hums and flickers, sputtering like an old engine. Fierce electrical crackles sporadically burst out of the sign's emitter, stabbing your eyes and filling your ears with static. Under the baleful glare of the sign, the rusty mini-barge's deck is stacked with electronics. Dilapidated stereos share space with crisply boxed servers. Ranks of discs and memory chips fill display cases, padlocked under plexiglass. A short human in his late 30s stands in the middle, hands on his hips, talking loudly into the air. Bulky virtual reality goggles cover his eyes. A data jack cable runs from his temple, down his stained t-shirt, to a belt load of clearly home-built computer hardware. No, I'm telling you. His voice is shrill, clipped. Nobody uses KM3s. Like, nobody. They're shit. I don't care what Dang says. If Shiawase SRP uses KM3s, they're stupid. Hey, flesh is rolling up. I gotta go. He turns to face you, goggles blank and enigmatic. Blinking with tiny lights and wrapped in duct tape, he points to your PDA. I ripped that PDA. You work for Kindly. His lips work impatiently. Yo, what do you want? Who are you? Servos whine as two lenses on his goggles zoom in on you. Who am I? You're new here, I get it. You don't know me yet, but you will. I'm one of the guys that keeps his neighborhood running. This is Law's Technology Palace, satellite territory of Wampoa. You step with a boat, you're in a sovereign state. I represent Wampoa here. I'm Maximum Law. He draws himself up proudly, settling his hands on his hips. The Maximum Law, yo. You got a tech problem? Boom, I solve it. You need software? Boom, done. But don't waste my time. So you got any business in Wampoa right now? If not, keep moving. Found this while poking around in the walled city. Worth anything? He scans the chip's casing with a handheld optical reader. Yo, that shit is bad. Left it off some Yellow Lotus? They traffic this stuff. Delimited sim chips, full sensory experiences. You looking for a buyer? I can make it happen. How's 120 new yen sound? Sure, take it. Hope it finds a good home. Well, yeah, I'll sample it first. But these Calhots can send you for a trip. Don't worry, I can handle my sims. I'm here for tech. Show me what you've got. Let's Let's see if we can sell. Ooh, we cannot sell anything. It would be nice to buy a new deck or something. I am very poor right now. Alright. Tell me about Wampoa. We're pretty much the best, yo. What do you want to know? Law folds his arms impatiently as if he's irritated by your request, but he can't quite stifle a proud grin. Just tell me about the tribe generally. Who are you guys? Law smirks. You really are new to the Kong, aren't you? We're the Neo Matrix Collective. We run the Hong Kong Data Haven and the Kong Shadow Nets. We are the Kong Shadow Nets. Outside the corporate nets is the rest of the Kong. And in those shadows you will find threads of golden light like a vast spider web that carry information. Those golden threads and that web is Wampoa. Law gives a curt, virile nod. My buddy Redstorm wrote that. Pretty wicked, huh? Anyway, we're bleeding edge on the path to the singularity. We're doing things no one else is doing anywhere, except maybe Denver or Tokyo. Our homeland is the Matrix, and we're building a society of truth and expertise and information. You seem very outspoken, less modest than many Hong Kongers. Is that tribal? I am more outspoken, yo. I don't need the meat space rituals. Modesty is inefficient. He shrugs dismissively. Is that a Wampoan thing? For those of us who are most dialed, maybe. We're post-cultural. Law sweeps his hand around, gesturing at the surroundings. I hardly see any of this meat space. Our meat space headquarters is a big 20th century ship that's totally awesome. Whatever, it's just meat space. Wampoa is bleeding edge on the path of becoming... Yeah, I got that. I understand someone's killing your elders. His face goes grim. A red light blinks on the VR goggles. A lens whirs quietly, focusing in on you. He grinds his teeth audibly, radiating nervousness and intensity. Yeah, shit's crazy. Full-on medieval. I can't talk about it. It's a tribal matter. Controlled information, right? We're gonna solve it. That's all outsiders need to know. Actually, I've been contracted to help the elders stop the murders. Wow, really? We're pulling in outsiders? He shakes his head in disbelief. Well, I should have seen that coming. What the hell are you doing here? Go to the garden and help stop that shit. Then come back and tell me what's going on. Everybody's guessing. The elders are being quiet and the rumor hub is going crazy. What's a Wampoan doing on Kindly's turf? Are you a liaison? What am I doing here? Law seems shocked at the question. I'm an ambassador. I broker Wampoa's services to Hioi. Emissaries like me are all over the Kong, tying it together in an invisible network. So, you work with Kindly doing tech for the Yellow Lotus? Well, I do some work directly with Kindly, but my focus is more the street level. We're all part of a big machine, each piece playing its critical role. And it is so, as is so with any highly evolved machine. Exactly, that's why nobody messes with Wampoa. Boom! Does Wampoa provide any technical services for Hong Kong's poor? Sure we do. We run private networks. Our services are way more than most ordinary people want, though. You can get prepaid bandwidth for it with a corporate carrier for fractions of a new yen, but you're selling your soul. They monitor it. If you want to operate unmonitored by corporate algorithms, you got to fly through the Wampoan network. It's the only place to be. Wampoans are coders and deckers for criminals. Is that right? We do tech for anyone in the Kong outside the corporate umbrellas. Anyone can use our networks if they pass our vetting and can pay for what we bring. Law speaks without a shred of irony. It's mostly the extra legal element that needs our skill. Outsiders don't understand us. Maybe you can, if you're really smart. We're in a whole different world than most people. Like, I'm seeing 3 streaming videos and live network stats in my goggles right now. Time's wasting, Alley Cat. Law kicks one of the bins at his feet. The sea of electronic... Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Okay. See you later, Law. That is all the info that I believe we need. So I guess we'll go. Head to Wampoa Garden to discover who's killing the Wampoan elders. Yeah. So I think we'll bring Isabel. You know what? Let's just bring the Bold Hole crew. Wonder if I can. No. So Raktor is an interesting character because it's been a while. But if any of you guys are still here from when I did my Shadowrun Dragonfall LP, Raktor is the. He's referenced in Shadowrun Dragonfall by a character named Lucky Star, who mentions a member of her crew that ran out on her and left her crew in a really bad way. Raktor is that character. He used to hang out in the Cruise Bazaar in the Berlin Flux state. We don't see him in Dragonfall. He's just referenced, and so he's kind of here as a reference to Dragonfall a little bit, which is very fun. I like that a lot. Wampoa Garden, a carnival of chrome and neon, rife with every manner of technology and artifice one can imagine. The entire area has the feel of a night market, save that chips are sold in lieu of steamed buns, and vendors hawk the latest drones rather than folk art. Something stalks these streets, hiding just out of sight. It stalks the Wampoan elders, the leaders of the band of tech-savvy squatters that have claimed this neighborhood as their own. The streets smell of ozone and fear, and those Wampoans you pass in the MTR station have a haunted, furtive look in their eye. While the killer has struck only at the elders thus far, it may only be a matter of time before ordinary residents are menaced as well. We don't really have anything that we can... God, our first run is going to be so light on, like, stuff we can do. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think there's any... Oh, there might be. The streets of Wampoa Garden are slick with rain, glittering under the neon glow of myriad signs and holographic displays. The sky reflects the same glow, painting the white apartment blocks the sickly orange of sodium streetlights. The smell of grilling meat mingles with other rarer scents, ozone, engine oil, and high-tech fabrication facilities. Despite the hour, there are plenty of people out and about. You can hear the calls of street vendors and touts, urging people into their stores. Isabel wrinkles her nose, scowling darkly. She wraps her arms tightly around her chest, staring off into the distance. Is there a word for feeling nostalgic for a place you can't wait to leave again? I don't miss this place, but I miss the feelings I had when I lived here. Saudade, maybe? Isabel shakes her head. No, that's not it. It's close, but... She lets the sentence trail off into nothingness, clamping her mouth shut for a moment. Isabel sighs heavily. This place seemed like heaven after the walled city, like the whole world had unfurled in front of me, and anywhere I turned there was the promise of a good life. Turned out this place was just as crappy as everywhere else. Everyone was still in it for themselves. Gobby claps a hand on Isabel's shoulder, who flinches and pulls away. That's a great life lesson, Is. I'm serious. At the end of the day, life's a raw deal. You've got yourself and a handful of friends, and that's it. Nothing else. Duncan casts a sidelong glance at Isabel and Gobbet, shaking his head. You got some strange ideas about life. Sure, life's a meat grinder, but come on, there's got to be more to life than just surviving. Does there? What makes you the authority on that? Isabel waves a dismissive hand. I'm done talking about this, anyway. Isabel turns toward you and points down the street to your left. We're looking for the Wampoan elders. They're gonna be in the Wampoa itself. That's the big ship down the street. That's the mall shaped like a boat, right? Isabel nods, lips pursed. That's the one. Somebody thought it would be clever to make a uniquely shaped mall. Alright. What's going on here? This orc woman is festooned with small circuits, tiny trid screens, and speakers. The trid screens display snippets of trid broadcasts from every corner of the world. The tiny speakers play counterpoint with a susurrus of voices speaking Sparathial, Punjabi, Kazakh, and other languages. Her expression is haggard, and she fidgets with her fingers as you approach. Welcome to Wampoa, my friend. I am Elder Ung, and these are Elders Tang and Ip. Ung gestures to the elf and human, who incline each of their heads respectively. Thank you so much for answering our request for help. We had nowhere else to turn. It's the least I could do. Under Tang's skin, glowing tattoos writhe and change shape. Tigers become cranes and move on to dragons. We're under threat. One by one, we elders are being hunted by some monster. As you may have noticed when you arrived, there's been another killing just tonight. Ip crosses his solid chrome arms. Holographic readouts dance constantly over their surface, displaying diagnostic information about their state, operating temperature, servo pressure, and a variety of other minutiae. He looks past you, towards Isabel. The prodigal daughter returned once more. I didn't expect to see you back aboard the Wampoa in my lifetime, Isabel. When you disappeared, Elder Yotunde was very put out. I'm glad you're still alive. When you chose to walk your own path, I was disappointed, but I still understood why you had to leave. Ip pauses, tasting the air as he chooses his next words with care. I hope my lessons have helped you prosper. Didn't expect to be back either. Work takes you places, though. Isabel shrugs. A moment later, she places a hand on her pistol, eyes trained on the Ip's shoes. I don't cart this around for fun, Ip. The lessons kept me alive. Isabel blinks several times and looks up at Ung, her expression clouded. Where is Yotunde anyway? I expected her to be here. Ung shakes her head sadly. She reaches out a hand towards Isabel, who shrinks away from it. She's dead. Sora gone and Nakamura, and Tong was killed just tonight. So much blood. You have to stop this from continuing. Isabel's expression remains impassive, but her knuckles grow white as her hands ball up into fists. That's what we're here for. We'll stop the killings. Thank you, Isabel. Ung lifts a hand, wiping away tears from her eyes. What can you tell me about the murders? They started 2 weeks ago. The first to go was gone. We found him in his apartment, eviscerated. Ung swallows, grimacing at the painful memory. He'd been torn apart. His head had been ripped completely off, and most of his skin flayed away. There was so much blood it took us a week to clean out his apartment. Tang nods, running his palm over his forehead. The rest have been the same, always at night, always dismembered. Each scene is like a nightmare. And every time, nobody has seen anything. It's like a ghost. What happened to Tong? The same thing that happened to the rest of the victims. Evisceration and dismemberment. We sent a guard to keep people out of his shop, but he'll let you in. When did he die? Sometime early tonight, he locked up his shop, but Ip stopped by to ask him about the skill chips he had. The door was unlocked, and inside... Ung lifts her hands helplessly. She opens her mouth, but no words come out. Seeing Ung's inability to continue, Ip takes over. Inside looked like a bad horror sim, just like all the other murders. It had to have happened after sundown because I saw his shop was open when I was on my way to get some noodles for dinner. Why didn't you call the police? The Hong Kong police force isn't welcome here. They've tried to force us out several times before or come hunting for someone to pin a crime on. We do a lot of favors with local gangs and triads, handle their matrix security, fix up their gear, and make sure they have access to the Hong Kong Shadowlands hub. We're too valuable a resource for them to lose, so they protect us when the HKPF or anyone else decides we're an easy target. They handle our physical security, and we make sure to send the message via the Matrix. The last time the HKPF made trouble, we started airing the Assistant Chief's dirty laundry over the Trid. They got the picture and backed off. Have you made any enemies lately? Ung shrugs helplessly. Not that I can think of. We keep to ourselves. We buy and sell technology. We're not mercenaries or criminals. We are merchants and deckers. And even if someone was cheated in a deal, this kind of response is unthinkable. Whatever did this, it wasn't human. The violence and savagery, it's a monster, whatever it is. Plenty of metahumans are monsters too, Ung. Just because it's horrible doesn't mean it's supernatural. What do the Wampoan elders do? Isabel snorts derisively. They make the rules, and kick people out who don't obey them. They're a bunch of petty tyrants, that's what. You're being unfair, Isabel. Our laws are for the good of the community. Tang turns to address you. We keep the Wampoa and its residents safe. We review trade agreements with outsiders to see if they're good for the community. We provide a guiding vision, like a town council. Rules are made to be broken. Elder Ip laughs, quickly stifling it as Ung and Tang give him a dirty look. I can see why Isabella's on your team. You and she are very much alike, I suspect. I am the invoker of sprites. I commune with the spirits of machines, ask them for blessings, and pass those blessings on to the people here. I heal the sick and ensure the feng shui of our habitats is as good as it can be, given our confines. She's a shaman, that's all. She's got some kooky spin on it. Claims her totem is some kind of all-encompassing machine god that lives in circuitry. Isabel pats her deck, looking at Ung. Ancient gods and ancestors are one thing. My deck, it's mine. I built it. The only spirits that's got in it are the ESPs I loaded up with. Ung gives Isabel a look of deep sadness. Just because you cannot see or touch a thing does not mean that it does not exist. Just because you do not believe in it does not mean it does not protect you from afar. I can't touch programs either, but at least I can prove they have an effect on the physical world. Your superstitions are just that. Bullshit. Isabel glances at you, jerking a thumb toward Tang. This guy treats drones like they're living things. Is that right? Tang extends his arms, palms up. As you watch, the tattoos therein shift into a complex mathematical formula. I am the first and glorious servo. I study patterns, repair machinery, and teach others how to attune themselves to the wonders of automation. I don't know what I'm doing with his voice. The blessed AutoFab is my shop and purview where we make the drones we use and sell. As for me, I serve as the resplendent voltage spike. Ip smiles crookedly. That means I shoot people who try to screw with us. It's a fancy title for head of security. That's all for now. It might be wise to ask the residents of Wampoa Garden if they've seen or heard anything after you've gone to Tong's Sensory Carnival. They may have seen or heard things we have not. Good to know. We will do this. We will do this thing.